Hello YouTube anglers, welcome to McGurkFish 65 Outdoors. Today I'm going to show you guys how to put together a bow fishing rig for not too much money when you're on a budget, like I am and everybody else is, and also some basics about bow fishing that'll show you that it's an enjoyable sport and something you should do that's kind of neat because it combines fishing and hunting together. So let's take a look at some equipment and show you what it's all about. Now, if you take a look on the table here, I've got one of my bow fishing outfits. Bow fishing doesn't require any too highly specialized equipment. You can use any kind of a bow. This is just an old Jennings compound bow that I got off eBay for 29 bucks that I use for target shooting and plan to use for hunting. It's 50-pound pole, standard wheel compound. This kind of bow is actually superior for bow fishing in my opinion because the longer, straighter limb bows tend to be a little bit more forgiving for bow fishing because you got to do some estimation shooting when you fire, and also bows that have a longer brace height like this one does. This brace height is probably about 8 inches from the string over to where the handle comes to the back. The longer the brace height, the greater the forgiveness or margin for error when you shoot. Now, in order to set up a bow for bow fishing, like in this case, what I did is I took an old cartel stabilizer and just put a couple of hose clamps that I got over at Ace Hardware on it. I wrapped it with some electric tape and then just got a Zebco splash reel. This is a kid's reel. You can get on eBay for about 12 bucks, or you can get them over at Walmart for about the same amount of money. A lot of guys in bow fishing like to use the big Zebco 808 catfish reels. Those are really good. What you want is a reel that has a large diameter spool, because when you're going to do is shoot and the arrow is going to be attached to the reel via some braided or Dacron line. Now up on the front of this reel, that makes it really good for bow fishing. You'll notice that it has a wide opening in the spin cast hood. The wider the opening, the easier the line pays out when you shoot, because when you fire, the line pays off the spool at a really rapid rate and follows the arrow over to your target, which is going to be a fish in this case. The arrow itself, you use a solid fiberglass arrow. This is actually a Ted Nugent gold tip that I used, a 300 spine arrow. And what I did is I cut the fletching off of the back, put some electric tape and a zip tie back here, and some electric tape up here. Now the reason for that is we've got a device that they invented a few years ago called a safety slide. And what this is a plastic slider that goes on the shaft of the arrow, and when you fire, the arrow comes off. What it does is it prevents the arrow from flying back at you, because it goes all the way down to the arrow base and goes away, so that if you don't lock this spin cast reel when you fire, you don't get this kickback where either a broadhead or a harpoon point could come back at you, which would be extremely dangerous. Now, a little added feature that I put on my particular bow fishing rig is a high intensity LED flashlight on the bottom, on the end I mean. A lot of times when you bow fish, you do it at night for rough fish species like gar, bowfin. Some people hunt and fish carp, or tilapia is a really good one to bow fish with. But since you're going at night, a flashlight gives you kind of a spotlighting ability. Some people actually even use bow fishing bows for gator hunting instead of the regular harpoons, because a bowfish rig is nothing but a harpoon. You can use standard harpoon tip arrows, or something that I use is a trocar point expandable broadhead tip like this one. See, it's got a rubber band that actually compresses these blades together. When this hits the target, these blades open up and this rubber band pops off, and this goes up to about 2 inches in diameter of cutting room. It also gives you a not pull back out or Chinese finger puzzle effect. So the arrow goes into the fish through it and doesn't come back out. A harpoon tip does the same thing. Now I have ordered a couple harpoon tip arrows from eBay that are on the way here because I want to try those too. The trocar points make me a little bit nervous because they're very sharp. I don't like handling broadheads too much because I have a heart condition with stents, and I take a drug called Plavix, and if I get cut, I practically bleed to death. So I want to make sure that I don't use razor tip broadheads unless I absolutely have to. But back to the rig itself, there's really nothing special about this bow. It qualifies to be a bow fishing bow. Something I like about it is that I have a bow doodle, a timber doodle rest on here, which is really good for finger shooting, which is something you usually do in bow fishing. I have this bow set up for release aid, but what I have ordered on eBay is a couple of vinyl finger tabs, or silicone finger tabs, that will go on the string above and below that D loop, and I'll actually shoot with my fingers when I bow fish. which is cool because wearing a release aid while you're in a boat and bow fishing is kind of a pain in the butt. So if you take a look here on eBay real quick, these are 3 fiberglass arrows that I bought for like 20 bucks on eBay on an auction. They're solid fiberglass with the safety slide mechanism on them, which prevents blowback or kickback from the bow in case you forget to push the button on that spin cast reel. These are harpoon tip arrows with trocar points, which the trocar cuts into the fish, and the harpoon tip makes it so it doesn't come back out. You loosen these tips and then the tines flip the other way, and it allows you to unhook or basically pull out the arrow on the fish each time. So I've got those on the way, so we'll give those a try when they come in. So here's something else on eBay that I'm going to set up my bow fishing bow eventually for when they come in. They're only going to be a couple days till they're delivered. These are silicone finger saver protectors that are used mostly by bow fishermen. One goes above here, one goes below here, below the nocking point on the arrow. These allow you to shoot with your fingers. Bow fishing, like I said, you can use a release aid, but that's kind of a pain in the butt when you're reeling a reel and you got a release hanging off of you and gets wet and that sort of thing. Bow fishing is kind of a nasty sport, so the simpler the equipment setup, the better. My brother and I used to use these when we first started archery with a Bear, Whitetail Hunter, and Polar LTD bows. We put these on the string, which they make it neat because you can shoot like you're shooting a tab, but you don't have to have the tab on. So when these come in, I will do a video on how to install them. You basically have to compress the bows, the limbs of the bow press, which I have, and then slide these onto the string. So it's not a big deal, but it'll make a neat little install video for you guys to see. Alright, so we're going to take a shot here from about 10 yards over to a stationary target I got on the ground that's going to represent our fish. Something you want to do when you knock an arrow in bow fishing is make sure that this safety slide is forward of the arrow rest. So I'm going to put this up here in front of the rest and then knock the arrow as normal. And something else you want to do is make sure that all of this line coming off of here does not tangle around this bar that it's hung on, or the stabilizer that I'm using, or on the reel frame or anything like that, because it can cause a blowback or that arrow to shoot back around and come towards you. Now I've only got a field point on here just for practice, but in shooting with a trocar tip or harpoon point, you can definitely be injured seriously if that arrow comes back at you. Now we're going to take a shot here just show you how simple this is. So when you shoot for bow fishing, always push the button on your spin cast reel first. Okay? Then it's clear to shoot. Take aim just like you normally would fishing, draw back, and then fire. And if you'll look, and I'll show you from another angle, the line has paid out of the spin cast reel and is going over to the arrow. So if we had a fish down there, it would be stuck in him. We could fight him, basically reeling back, just like with a rod and reel. And some bow fishing outfits I've seen before where they have a little section of about a foot of fishing rod with a guide on there. That's not necessary. You're just basically going to haul the fish in with this at that point, because you're going to mortally wound the fish or kill it when you hit it with an arrow. So this is not catch and release fishing. You don't do this legally on game fish. This is only done on rough fish like carp, gar, bowfin. State of Florida, you can also shoot tilapia, which are good to eat. There's a lot of invasive tilapia in these ponds, so you can clean them out bow fishing where they're difficult to catch otherwise. You can catch them on lures sometimes, but bow fishing kind of gives you that hunting experience plus fishing at the same time. It's really cool. Now something that happens too, I'll show you. If you don't push the button on the reel, what you can get is what I call a pop-off. I'll show you real quick, just by barely pulling back the bowstring. If that reel is not put into free spool, watch this. You come tight to it, see the arrow will pop off of the rod and reel. Now the safety slide allows that to pull away from you a far distance so that that trocar point or broadhead or harpoon tip won't come back at you. But it's really important that you push in the button on the reel so that the line does come out every time you fire. A very important safety tip in bow fishing. Okay, so we're going to take a shot here at our little squirrel target. It's going to represent our fish. I'm going to show you the shooter's point of view. You've seen it from the side, now from the back. So when you knock an arrow for bow fishing, you want to make sure that this safety slide mechanism is in front of the arrow rest. Okay, the arrow rest is back here on the riser as usual. So safety slide goes up front. What I do personally is take all the slack out of the line and then push the button on the spin cast reel to put it in free spool, and then just take your normal shot. Now, as you'll see by that, the line paid out, just like you're fishing, and you just reel it up, just as if you were reeling in a fish. It's pretty cool because you combine sort of hunting and fishing. A lot of times when the fish is struck with a bow fishing arrow, they still fight quite a bit. So, especially bigger fish, like some of the gar and stuff like that they shoot. Now, bear in mind, in the state of Florida, when they alligator hunt, a lot of guys use bows for alligator hunting, because normally you could use a harpoon for an alligator. Well, when you're shooting a fishing arrow, that is a harpoon. This is just mini harpooning. And guys that played against sports, where I get my rods and reels from over in Leesburg, they told me that out sometimes on charter fishing boats out in deep sea, where they're fishing for marlin and sailfish, they will hit a sailfish with one of these things. Now imagine hitting a sailfish and catching it with a bow fishing reel. That would be awesome. Alright, so that's pretty much bow fishing in a nutshell, real quick. Bow fishing 101 we'll call it. If you want to do total cost of what I did for this, including the bow was about 30 bucks. The bow fishing arrows are going to be 3 for 20, so that's $50. The reel was 12, so we're up to 62. And then some Dacron line that I already had, so I'm not going to charge for that. Dollar store, Dollar Tree flashlights, so $63. And 2 hose clamps for $1.20 each, so about 65 bucks. Those came from Ace Hardware, and $1 for electric tape. For about under $70, you can put together a bow fishing outfit that is totally serviceable and workable. You can spend a lot of money on one of these and get like an Oneida Eagle and a AR type bow fishing setup, which work very well. I'm not complaining about those at all. But I tend to do things a little less expensively and kind of use what I have around the house. I have a lot of archery equipment, so I kind of put these bow fishing rigs together. I've got 2 rigs because I got 2 compound bows, so when I go bow fishing, I always carry a spare, because inevitably I'm going to break something, I guarantee you. In fact, my other bow, the string broke when I was shooting the other day. Fortunately, I didn't get too hurt, but I just ordered another string off of eBay for 15 bucks from 60X Plus Strings over in Tennessee. They're really great because they'll manufacture the string for the bow, and I use older type equipment in case you haven't noticed. My archery equipment is all vintage. I use Jennings bows that they don't make anymore with round eccentric wheels, which I prefer. There's nothing wrong with a modern Bowtech or a Diamond or Matthews, but I like the old stuff. I'm just an old guy, okay? So, if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to the channel. I am going to bring you some more videos, including bow fishing itself. We'll actually go out and shoot someday. We're going to try to find some tilapia in a canal around here in Central Florida and get those, and we'll actually fillet them and eat them. Tilapia are really good to eat, and again, they are legal to bow fish in Florida. So, again, like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you next time. Like a Hellcat.